to the Johnny Dell Football Academy podcast on the channel that's trying to answer the whys and hows of the game by talking through and dissecting game film and diving deeper to explain why the X's zig and the O's zag. I am Adam Marino, joined by Mr. Johnny Dell, and we are reminding you, as always, the most fun way to watch is on YouTube, where we go live. There you can comment into the live show. Be sure to hit the notification bell and turn on your notifications so you can be a part of the conversation. We also stream live on Facebook and X. Also, the audio versions are always found on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. Now, if you are live with us in the chat, it's probably because you are subscribed, you've hit the notification bell, and turned those notifications on. So, when sharing with your friends, be sure to let them know. We also love to hear from you outside of our live show. Email us at jonnydelsfootballacademy@gmail.com, and you can always check out the website jfa49.com, as it is the most fun way to support the channel. Also, the way we boost the chat and boost the algorithm is to type out hashtag JD49. Welcome into an evening broadcast of the Johnny Dell Football Academy podcast. And we start with a super chat, a new subscriber. Thanks for schooling me on the game, V Malik 510. Maybe you're from the 510. Maybe. Thanks for the super chat. Always good to get a new subscriber.
Yes, thank you very much.
Always awesome. I will ask V Malik that you take your phone and show it to Niner fans when you're out and about in the 510 and show them the channel, man. So we got I was talking just to you, Johnny, right before this. We got a lot to get into. I'm gonna do my best to not let you ramble for 3 hours, because this could be a 3-hour show with all the stuff going on. Let's start with Saleh. Let's start there. You thought you broke the news to me like 18 hours later, bud.
No, I didn't think I was breaking it to you. I was just kind of making sure we were on the same page about it. So, my voice sounds a little bit different. I've got slight laryngitis. We've got colds in the house after the long weekend.
The flu game.
And so I went to bed fairly early last night and hadn't checked my phone in a while, and woke up to the morning that in the morning to the news that Robert Saleh had been hired by the Tennessee Titans. And I was just kind of putting feelers out there to see if I assumed T.I. already knew, but just everything there, T.I. being obviously Titans idiot. We did a collaboration show with him before we played the Titans this year. Robert Saleh, big thank you to Robert Saleh for what he did this year, patching together a defense that was playing backups to backups by the time they were playing the Seahawks. There just came a point where the lack of ability to run your entire arsenal came back to hurt you. And you can't go deep in the playoffs like that. You just can't. You have to have your entire arsenal. You have to have things that you installed during training camp, during OTAs available to run, and you just didn't, because you're on your backups to backup linebackers, guys that had been with the team for 6 and 7 weeks, that were cut from practice squads off of teams that were still in the playoffs. That's no way to try and go deep in the playoffs. I mean, I think we all knew, especially, most of the people that watch this show knew that we were playing with house money this year. So while it sucks to lose in such a bad way, I think we all knew that this was not a realistic team to make the Super Bowl this year, simply after you have the tidal wave of blue chip player injuries and everything that, and also Brandon Aiyuk going MIA. That once all of those things, you add all of them together, and it just becomes extremely difficult. I don't blame them for how the season ended in any way. I'm a little surprised by some of the reaction to the season. Yes, it was a bad loss, but I mean, come on. This was a team that before the season started, you go back and you look at, I think that the thing that started making me go, was around August during the training camp uh, pressers when Robert Saleh was being very intentional in his language about it was very much seemed like he was tempering expectations for the defense throughout the year. He kept talking about, these are young guys with lots of talent. They will be eventually a really good player in this league, really good player. You might not see it this year, but they're going to be a really good player in this league as time plays out. It was very much preaching that from the very beginning. Kyle Shanahan was the same way, very much talking. This is a team that in 2023 they knew they should be in the Super Bowl. They expected to be in the Super Bowl by the end of the year because of the roster construction, and and they were, but they had no conversation like that at all this year. It was simply look, we're not going to rule it out. You never rule yourself out. It's get to the dance and then see what happens. But was this a year where they said, we should be winning a Super Bowl this year or be in the Super Bowl? No. And it very much felt like that. It very much felt like they were a team that was going down the same path that the Rams did in 2023 when they reset their whole roster. They drafted Jared Verse and Braden Fisk and rebuilt their defensive line and reset their cap and moved on from some aging veteran players and then set themselves up for a second window with Matthew Stafford. And they're in the middle of that right now. So, the Seahawks did this last year. They moved on from some aging vets. They brought in some youth. They made some very targeted, high quality draft picks. And here they are walking towards, again, facing off against those Rams. The 49ers are a year and 2 years behind the roster construction resets that those other teams were. And I think they had the best roster reset year of any of those teams. You look at how Seattle was last year or how LA was 2 years ago. The 49ers this year were much more competitive than they were and had much more adversity in the injuries they had. So I feel great about where the team is going forward as far as the roster construction. I don't see this team as having as many holes as I think we're kind of looking at it. They do kind of, our vision skews a little bit when you lose as badly as you did, but I think it's more there's targeted holes that are major pressure points. That would be wide receiver is a huge area of concern. It's been the entire season.
Yeah.
Um, they have not had any explosiveness at receiver for any stretch of the season, going back to when Jacob Cowing injured his hamstring and re-injured it 4 or 5 times. And then just it's decided that he wasn't going to play this year. Jordan Watkins, infamously the 49ers redshirt rookies, especially late round rookies. Brandon Aiyuk went MIA. Juwan Jennings is a free agent. The only guy that caught significant passes for you this season that is under contract is Demarcus Robinson, who looks like he might be just a little bit slower than Juwan Jennings now. So I think they let Juwan walk. I think they expect Demarcus Robinson to be the next Juwan Jennings. The problem is he cannot block like Juwan Jennings. Of course, Juwan Jennings' blocking this season has been not at the level it's been in years past.
So, a couple things here. Let's talk through some of the not every single one because there's 93, I feel like, but including Trent Taylor, which is hilarious. But some of the names that jump out to me are like you said, Jawan, dude, Eddie Pinheiro, dude, whatever he wants, whether it's a house in Mexico for his dad or whatever, give it to him. Here you go, Eddie. Yes. Yes, Mr. P. Coming right this way, Mr. P. Whatever he wants, you give it to him because the stress level, if the stress level for fans were at an all-time low in the kicking game, imagine what it is for the coaching staff. Like that level of like, whew, like remember when it was Robbie Gold? It's just like, yep, he's gonna
Yeah.
make it, and like no big deal. Okay, well, that has been gone for quite some time, and now it came back, and we need it to stay. So I think Eddie P definitely. needs to stay? Who else jumps out to you? We talked about Ben Barch. Who else jumps out to you, Johnny?
It's there's going to be some interesting questions. I mean, right now the 49ers, I think they have 38 or 39 players signed under contract for next year. Not, obviously not with these free agents included. So, they have a number of guys under contract that you add in a rookie class that is, they're going to add at least 8 or 9 guys in this rookie class that I only see them really maybe trying to resign or sign 4, 5, or 6 guys. There's going to be a lot of bargain deal re-signings. I think there's going to be some interest in re-signing Eric Kendricks, if nothing else for depth. Of course, he may want to go be in a starting role, and they may say, "Hey, look, we'll let we'll let you come in and compete with D Winters." I think they want to push D Winters more. I really do. I think they expected him to take a bigger step this year than he did. Um, while he had moments that were very strong, I
But
think
injuries
it
too.
still wasn't quite there. And I mean, yeah, the injury came in late, but like it's just he wasn't on it like Dre Greenlaw. They were expecting him to be Dre Greenlaw 2.0, and it was more like Dre Greenlaw 2.0 alpha test. Like it wasn't quite they hadn't worked out all the bugs yet. And I think they don't want him to be complacent this offseason. So I wouldn't be surprised if they go after Eric Kendricks to re-sign. They have a hole at left guard. Spencer Burford and Ben Barch are both free agents this year. I wouldn't think about bringing either one back. I wouldn't be surprised if they bring Burford back, but I mean, my goodness, I watched the tape. Burford was terrible in this game. He had moments over the last few weeks where he started to give you hope that he could be better going forward, and it was like,
Yeah.
wow, if he can be a pleasant surprise, this is his more natural side on the left side, then you've answered a question for next year. But what we saw was very much what you tend to see from Burford is that the longer he starts and plays consecutively, as snap counts without a break, the worse his performance gets. It's I don't know if it's a thing of like mentally he starts getting worn down or if it's that he can't handle like the succession of defensive players saying, "Okay, I did this, now I'm going to do this, now I'm going to do this, and now I'm going to do this," without a rotation in there to kind of reset that approach. And so I just wonder, you know, do do they even think about bringing back? I don't because he can offer some at tackle. I would rather roll with Austin Pleasance as your swing tackle that has at least some upside because of his large frame um, than Spencer Burford. One thing that the Seahawks did this last year that I think has been a huge key to their success, especially as of late on the offensive side, was I went down to the Senior Bowl last year, and the guy that everybody was talking about, interior offensive lineman, was Gray Zabel. We had talked about him and I kept saying I didn't see the 49ers investing the 11th overall pick in Gray Zabel because most teams don't view a guy from North Dakota State on the interior offensive line as worthy of a top 15 pick. Um, and so it would come around to the second round, and I said, "Hey, he's not going to make it to the second round. At worst, he's like 20th overall." I think at that range, you're going to see somebody pick him, and they're going to get the best offensive lineman in this draft. We talked about it all last year. And watching the tape, dude was climbing to the second level all game long, was winning every one of his blocks. He is, to me, an absolute future. He almost could be all pro this year, should be a future all pro for the next 10 years. I mean, this is like Joe Tooney 2.0 at the interior offensive line. And they got him, and it completely transformed their offensive line. We talked about it before the season started that I thought Seattle's offensive line was going to be their weak point, and they came in, and their offensive line has been playing really well down the
So,
last 6, 7 weeks of the year. They've
yeah.
gelled, they've come together. They just gave Charles Cross a big extension. They got Gray Zabel next to him. When you have one side of your offensive line that is absolute studs, it does make life better for the rest of them. Remember, go back And remember when Laken Tomlinson was playing at a really high level with us in 2019, and you had Joe Staley and Laken Tomlinson, and then you had Laken Tomlinson and Trent Williams next to each other. We could run off the left side almost at will, except when you get to the Super Bowl, in the last 4 minutes of the Super Bowl, which sucks. But like that makes life so much easier. You need to solidify that left guard spot. You're going to have the 27th overall pick in the draft this year. I think you go interior offensive line without a question. You go find the best guy out there. I know there's other positions that are going to be more premium value because of limited skill sets, but you've got to fix this offensive line. Among all the other holes and concerns you have, offensive line has to be number one. The pressure rate that Brock Purdy was under against the Seahawks was similar to the 2020 Super Bowl where Patrick Mahomes was running for his life the entire game and they scored 9 points. It was on par with the 2024 Super Bowl where Patrick Mahomes was running for his life and getting mauled by that Eagles defensive line. It was similar to the game Josh Allen played earlier this year against the Texans, where the Texans sacked him like 9 times, and they put up hardly any points. It was similar to what the same Houston line did to the Steelers and ended Aaron Rodgers' career. That was the kind of pressure that Brock Purdy was under. It was and it was actually the highest rate of pressure this season. So think back to that Bills Houston game, how Houston was absolutely mauling Josh Allen the whole game. Brock Purdy faced a pressure rate higher than Josh Allen did in that game. That's how bad the pressure was. So, like, I don't want to hear about, Brock Purdy not handling pressure, not seeing things, or not. No, the offensive line was absolutely getting their lunch money stolen. They could not block Seattle's edges. They couldn't block their defensive tackles. Um, Watching Brock have to escape and try and make off schedule plays because he was under instant pressure when we were keeping 2 guys into chip and release is really frustrating to watch on film. And you say there's not much more you can do. You are keeping 7 in against 4 at some point, and your quarterback is still having to start taking off at 2.5 seconds because the pressure's there. That's not a winning recipe. We've been talking about this for years that they have consistently undervalued offensive linemen, and it always comes to bite you in the playoffs when the best defensive lines make the playoffs. And
Yeah,
so,
we have talked about it for a
it's
while.
what I want to see. The biggest hole is I think the biggest opportunity is left guard because no one is slated to start there. No one's signed there, so they have to go fill that role. And this seems like an opportunity to now get a premium pick there. I think they're a little gun shy because of the Aaron Banks pick. They invested a second in Aaron Banks. It didn't work out. Aaron Banks was not that great at left guard. He was a second round pick. Yes, he started for him for a number of years. Got a big contract with Green Bay. Green Bay's not playing in the playoffs anyways either.
Yeah,
So he hasn't been that great for them either. But I think their biggest hole is their biggest opportunity, and then you do need to address center. I think the biggest frustration I have with Kyle over the last month is the how he came out right before the Seattle game and talked about Jake Brendel as being one of the best centers in the league. Um, that's baloney, and I think he knows it. I don't know what kind of smoke he's blowing, but yeah.
definitely blowing it. Lisa, not blowing smoke, says, checks in with super chat. It says to you when you said Greenlaw 2.0. Speaking of D winners, she said that's more like Dre
Dre
Greenlaw
Greenlaw 1.75.
1.75, not quite 2.0. Thank you, Lisa, great friend of the show. Also, speaking of friend of the show, always love when Glass City's hanging out. Thank you to Glass City who says, "Hey, we need a new QB coach for Brock and the wide receivers. If Kurt Warner, Hall of Famer Kurt Warner, can't figure out the passing game plan, then maybe it's something to think about." He loves
Yeah,
him some Brock Purdy. Kurt Warner does.
yeah. Now I will say, Kurt does tend to. We have to also remember where Kurt came up from and where he had his most success was under Mike Martz, which was a passing game that was passing game first, and then the run game built off the passing game. And when you're
Which is like
flipped here,
no offense. Yeah.
when you're flipped here, your passing game isn't meant, you're not trying to get a ton of explosives on your drop back passing. It's you're trying to set everything up for your explosives later with your drop back passing. Most of your drop back passing is game planned around what they what opposing defenses are going to run on third down. So I would wager to bet that the 49ers passing game is kind of like a 75% weighted to third down sort of passing attack with then very little drop back on first down. And and their second down is very limited to uh like very quick shallow underneath screens, dump offs, manufactured yards to get you in third and manageable. So I don't like with all of that, it's kind of like how are you trying to get into this certain area? And it's just a very different approach. And I do think that's why uh people like Kurt and JT, they both come from that Mike Martz background. How the passing game is very much about how do I set up the next pass with this pass? And how do I tie my concepts in together? Kyle Shanahan is how do I get to my next run off this pass? And how do I mitigate um, exposure on some of this stuff? So I think that's part of what's going on there. I would like to see them get a little more balance on their second downs. I don't know what their process is on who is in charge of second down passing. If that's Kyle, if that's the quarterback coach, if that's Leonard Hankerson, who's the wide receiver coach. I will say, I think above the passing game issues, um, they've got to figure out something with the wide receivers and blocking. It was so bad. There was one play. It was I think the second drive. We started. It was right before Ton just fumbled the ball. We went to run off right tackle, and Juice comes in on a late motion. They snap the ball. Juwan Jennings is completely confused about who to block. The Seattle runs a little slant down. It's something that they've run all year, so it shouldn't necessarily catch you off guard. They literally were running the same defensive play first week, and Juwan Jennings is literally standing there looking around trying to figure out who to block, and then goes and half-heartedly blocks the same guy Juszczyk's blocking. No one even gets really a hand on anybody. The run gets stuff for like a half-yard gain. Those things are hard to watch on film and say, well, it's a passing game problem, or it's when Seattle's able to stay in that too high, and you just can't run against it. Now I get it. A lot of people have struggled running against their front, but when you see things like that, and you say, I don't know, I can't just say this is Seattle's defense being so good. There's just issues there. You go back to week 18. You have Demarcus Robinson is supposed to go block Nick Emanwari on a run, and he just he goes and he blocks the same guy that Juwan Jennings is supposed to kick out. When you have two guys who are blocking the same guy and one guy is left uncovered and he makes the tackle, I sit there and go, I have a hard time with that, especially when it's wide receivers. Like there's a problem outside of these guys are just simply are not even identifying their assignments. I don't know if that goes back to training camp and having the injuries they had and the lack of reps there, but you would think somebody like Juwan Jennings, who's been with the team for a long time, I don't know if it's a mental thing of like he's checking out a little bit on the run game because he's not going to be here next year. I don't know what the answer is. It just is very frustrating to watch and think, okay, um, we have a bigger issue. I will say the the offensive line was not good enough. They weren't moving people. So I don't know. It's just like this whole year, I think I feel like a broken record on talking about wide receiver blocking that it just hasn't been good enough. It hasn't been near good enough. And I think that was at the heart of Christian McCaffrey's statement when he said this has been one of the hardest seasons of my life because he wasn't getting explosive runs. He had
Yeah.
to run into a brick wall over and over and over again. And he wasn't having any receivers creating space for him. He was the only one creating space mostly on the team. No receivers were creating space for him. Everybody's giving him attention. Everybody's giving attention to the run game. He's getting no help from his receivers in there. It's got to be extremely frustrating for a player of his caliber to not be busting out the 40-yard runs and to have everybody, including certain beat reporters, talking all season long about how you've lost a step when you clearly haven't, but you can't prove it because you can't break one of the big ones because of the way that the blocking has worked out. He hit one when he finally one time in the year that he got the blocking, he hit a 40-yarder. He's had the ability to do it all season, and I truly think that's why he said it was the hardest season of his life, because it was just so hard to get anything going. But with all that, I try and keep in mind that the 49ers still had a 4-week stretch of one of the best offensive stretches of 4 weeks that we have ever seen in the history of the franchise. I mean, we went almost 4 straight weeks without our punter punting.
Yeah.
So in all of that, I mean, to say as bad as the receivers were, they still did that. I think, I think, I don't know. I go back and forth. I really want to plug left guard with a first round pick. I also really want to reach out to the Vikings and see Mac Jones and our first and what else to get Justin Jefferson.
Yeah.
Because Justin Jefferson's not happy there. You can't tell me he's happy there.
With JJ McCarthy.
And so like I would see what would you take? You know, Mac Jones, because I want to say AJ Brown was a first and a third was what he took. What it took to get AJ Brown from the Titans.
Philly.
Yeah. I think that's what you put out there. Mac Jones, our first round pick, and then see where they bid back from there. As much as I want to fill left guard with a hole there, you need a dynamic receiver. You have to fill the X receiver role, because Juwan Jennings was playing that role, and he was only supposed to be there instead in Brandon Aiyuk's stead until he came back. It didn't happen. Ricky Pearsall's not an X. He's the Z receiver. He played some X, but clearly you can't count on him right now. I mean, he's got to show that he can go more than 2 months without a football injury. I'm not talking about when he was shot. He had a shoulder injury. He had a hamstring injury. He had knee injury. He's had a calf injury at one point. Kid's been banged up almost since the 49ers drafted him. Now, I mean, which is crazy because he was very healthy in college. But even if you are relying on him, you need another dynamic weapon at receiver. You can't watch what Brock Purdy did this year with the absolute lack of dynamic receiving threats there and say Brock would be thrown for 4,900 yards with a Justin Jefferson on the team. I mean, come on. So that's what I would say. It's either that or you load up everything and wait till 2027 and get Jeremiah Smith from Ohio State. That's what I say. Like you trade the farm for that kid in 2027. He can't come out in the draft till 2027, but he's going to be the best receiver by a mile when that draft comes around.
So a couple other things to get to, Johnny. One, another super chat, which I wholeheartedly agree with. Lisa again checking in says, after week 18, I hated Aiyuk more and more. Tell me if this was real, Johnny, in chat. If you guys saw this, they're the number one fan page for Ayuk.
Yeah, it was real. It was 100% real.
Okay, because nowadays sometimes you don't know.
He was not running that just out of his good graces. He's a creator who works on contract for different players to run their fan pages. Basically, like it's an official fan page of this guy to hype them and push their merch and do all this stuff. You know, build their brand.
And it's
that
chump
apparently
change for the NFL star to give out a few grand is like nothing for them, and it's everything for a creator to make that.
Basically, BA never held up any part of his end of the deal. After he got paid his big contract, he's pieced out. He's checked out. He got his bag. He's good with it and has been MIA for that guy too. So, um, don't know what's going on with BA.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we've seen this a couple times in the NFL. It gives me shades of Albert Hainsworth that Mike Shanahan dealt with in Washington, where a guy gets paid and then just absolutely has no interest in doing anything but what helps them. And so I don't know. I just can't wrap my mind around it. But yeah, I mean, you see how it went, and you go,
CTE.
we would be talking completely differently about this season if you have a Brandon Ayuk who should have been close to 100% healthy by that point. He should have been at least 90 for 95%, and he wasn't there. I mean, I think somehow Brandon Ayuk has managed to draw even more ire from 49ers fans than Devondre Campbell. Because at least Devondre Campbell put on the pads with his team. And then he quit. He quit middle of the game because he wasn't getting playing time. Brandon
Yeah.
Ayuk quit because they wanted to give him playing time.
Right. Just unbelievable. Um, Hey, we got a longtime fan, first time live. Big Bad Wolf. What is happening? Appreciate the content. Why do you think the Niners can't attract high profile free agents, and what players are on your wish list? Well, Justin Jefferson, Crosby, I think
Yeah, I
would
mean, of
be on
course, I
that
mean,
list.
obviously Justin Jefferson and Crosby being guys who are currently under contract. I think I don't necessarily know if it's that they can't attract high profile free agents. I mean, Javon Hargrave would be a great example of a guy that they attracted, spent big money on, huge money on. Weston Richburg was a guy, big money free agent. I think he was the second highest paid center in the league when they signed his contract in 2018. Big time contract. And he was a big time acquisition. Was the best center that Kyle Shanahan has had under with the 49ers. And they were able to land him. I think of Jerick McKinnon, who signed a massive contract for a running back at the time. I mean, he
All
was
those running backs.
nearly.
Didn't we get like four or five? Um, Coleman and those guys.
Yeah, but Jerick McKinnon was specifically brought in to be a Christian McCaffrey type back, to be this hybrid receiver running back guy that could challenge a defense in so many different ways. And I mean, remember Jerick McKinnon was given like it was 9.75, I think, a year. And to put that in perspective, that was in 2018. And when the Eagles signed Saquon last year, or not last year, but the two off seasons ago, it was for 12.75. And that's 6 years of contract inflation.
Yeah.
Um,
So nine is a lot.
yeah, so the 49ers giving Jerick McKinnon 9.75 was absolutely huge. Um,
Johnny, we may have
like
to go at night more.
I'm telling you, we'll get to this.
Yeah.
But so like they have signed some really big contract free agents this last offseason. They were clearly not interested in any of that. They were trying to clear and reset their cap. Javon Hargrave being one of the reasons why is that he did not perform and they did not get the value of that contract back from him. So,
Quan
you know,
Alexander, Callie
Quan
says
Alexander was a big free agent, signing
2019.
14 million a year was what he was signed to at the time. It was one of the high. I think he was a top 5 paid linebacker when they signed him. So they've been willing and they've attracted some top free agents. It hasn't always looked the way we've wanted it to look. But when they have it there, they're not afraid to pull the trigger. Um, and so I guess that's to say a lot of that. To say what are players that are on my wish list? Um, there's not a lot of guys who I look around and I say, okay, I would be really, really impressed with this guy. I mean, probably Linderbaum. from the Ravens would be number one on my list. He's center, Tyler Linderbaum. Um, he's been one of the, I think, a top 5 center in the league, legitimate top 5 center with a team that loves to run the ball. So I think he's somebody that I would definitely um, really go after this year. I think it just makes sense. He's somebody who can really secure that center spot, and you don't have to spend premium draft capital on him. I think going back to this other super chat here from Glass City, thank you about that. I would go after Alec Pierce as a receiver. I think, again, you need more dynamic weapons in there. The Colts are not going to be able to pay all their receivers. They have a huge question at quarterback there now with what's going on with Daniel Jones. I don't know the nature of Daniel Jones's Achilles tear, if it was as favorable for rehab as George Kittle's. So they have a big question mark there. I would not be opposed to looking at Connor McGovern, which is the Bills' left guard. I think while not top 10 maybe in the league, he would definitely be an upgrade over Spencer Burford. Big time upgrade. So, whatever you can do to kind of look at where you can fill some holes without having to get unproven in the draft, but then also maybe look into it. I would kick the tires on Reed Blankenship. I don't think the Eagles are going to be able to re-sign him. So, I mean, they have some serious cap problems coming down the pipe. They've got to re-sign Jalen Phillips because they traded for him this offseason. Reed Blankenship is going to hit free agency. And I think he fits what the 49ers like out of safeties. And he's been a very good safety there for Philadelphia. So Reed Blankenship is somebody I would at least kick the tires on and think about bringing in. Now, he's going to want a starting role. I don't know if the 49ers want to hand over a starting role. I think they like Marquise Siegel. I think they're willing to move on from Jair Brown. But for some reason, he's kind of like Dante Johnson. He keeps hanging around, and you can't understand why.
He's better than Dante Johnson, isn't he?
I'm saying he's better, but sort of, but he also he's a player that keeps hanging around, and I don't understand why. I don't understand what the real draw is there with him. I am intrigued by Kyle Pitts as a tight end. I think, I don't know. It depends on what the market looks like for him. If the market just goes crazy and teams are willing to pay him 16, 17 million a year, then you let somebody else pay him 16, 17 million a year. If he's going to get paid in the 8 or 9 million a year, yeah, you kick the tires on him and you think about bringing him in. I think that would make a lot of sense. I think you got to look into Wan'Dale Robinson. I think he had a very good year there with the Giants. It was over 1,000 yards receiving and proved a lot of good things there. I think you have to look at him. So there's a number of guys in here in this free agent class that are intriguing and could be good additions. But there is going to be, bidding wars over a number of these guys. So, what that actually turns out to be, how many of them actually hit free agency, it will be, we'll have to wait and see. We're starting to see some of those extensions come around right about now. But those are some of the guys on my wish list to answer that one. What are my thoughts on Renardo Green? My thoughts on Renardo Green is I think he's a future starter in this league, or as a solid starter right now, and could be a future star. He's got all the physical tools to be a very good outside corner. He can play press man as well as anybody. That being said, he can get he can get picked on a little bit for getting greedy. And there's, there were just some too many mental mistakes from him this year. And so, right now he's kind of dealing with not as bad version of what happened with Ambry Thomas. So Ambry Thomas had a really good showing at the end of his rookie year and then flatlined. Didn't improve, didn't work, didn't move on. Renardo Green had a really strong outlook on his rookie year. And he's had a little bit of a sophomore slump It's not been as bad as I think people have made it out to be, because it's not like we're watching like when Dante Johnson would go into a game, every single team that played us would immediately throw a fade ball against Dante Johnson, no matter what coverage we ran. Like if we were anything other than too high, like with a safety over the top, if it was any sort of cover three, cover four, or man, they were throwing a 50-50 fade ball on Dante Johnson the moment he came into a game, every single team, every single time he played. It hasn't been like that. Like, it wasn't like every team was just bombs away against Ronaldo Green, challenging him all game long. Now, he
Yeah.
gave up some plays, absolutely, but I think he's still got a bright future. You know, his biggest test is gonna be this offseason.
Another one. What I like this one too from Vincent Alley 5938. What would you give Brock for the last game? That's so tough based on here's a stat for you guys real quick, Johnny. A stat for that game. Most people probably saw this. So Brock Purdy between the hashes or sideline to sideline, running for his life, ran for as many yards as basically Patrick Mahomes did in the game against the Super Bowl against the Buccaneers, where he was running for his life. Over 415 yards they both ran for in that game. When you add up all of the running for their lives, that doesn't even make sense when the field is 53 yards uh, sideline to sideline. And you're saying Brock Purdy ran over 400 yards? That gives you an idea of when you answer this question, what grade are you going to give a guy who has to run like that and they only put up 6 points? But like, is that on him?
Yeah, so he traveled 413 yards across his 33 dropbacks, averaging 12 and a half yards running per dropback.
Dude,
Uh,
that's come on.
and and with all of that and all of the time he was trying to buy and running around, it was only 2 completions, of let's see, it was 2 completions of 35 yards, which was 10 plus air yards in the game. They recorded a pressure rate of 39.4% and only blitzed him 4 times.
Yeah, come on.
I mean, it's just it's
Good luck,
wild.
Stafford. That's all I can tell you.
Yeah, what I will say, a lot of it too, yes, there was some of it on the offensive line. That's why I say the two biggest holes are at wide receiver and offensive line, because Brock's average time to throw is 4.24 seconds. Now, some of that's because you're having to flush from the pocket early, and he's trying to look downfield and find targets. The other is you're having to hold the ball because reads 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the progression are covered. Um, you're not able to stretch those zones. You're not getting anything moving and creating any space in those zones. And so it's lack of dynamic weapon at receiver, which we all knew about, and lack of dynamic play from the offensive line, which we've all known about. So, it's a game that when you really step back and look at it, you say, this went about exactly how you would expect, when knowing exactly where the state of the roster is. Everybody in the NFL, fans looking at the 49ers, will say they do not have a dynamic wide receiver threat and their interior offensive line is not good. So, like you say that, and it's like, okay, yeah. So this game went about how you would expect if going against that defense, just like that. So in it all, I mean, what grade do you give Brock Purdy? You can't give him an A because there is the interception, and
Right.
your team, you only score 6 points. You can't give anybody an A on there. I think that's why Kyle Shanahan, he's asked how did
Yeah.
you think Brock played? And he says no one played good enough. There's no way that you can look at that and say, well, he played an A plus plus game.
Yeah.
Because I mean, when you're grading it on a curve, maybe, I mean, but it's like kind of like when you're involved in a class project and you have a project of 6 people and the other 5 people in the team turn their homework in 3 days late, you're going to get an automatic 10% reduction on everybody's grade. So, uh, you know, That like you can't score that. I mean, I would give Brock a B plus on the game. He handled it about as well as I think you can handle it. There is no good way to handle what happened. So I mean, that's just how I feel about it. Like he was not the issues in that game. I mean, if anybody
Right.
looks at Brock and sees issues there, I go, nah, you're trying to find issues. You're just having it confirm something you already believed. If that's the point, if that's the place, or if that's the take.
I was a glutton for punishment and hung around even when Mac Jones was in. And when they cut to the sideline of, Brock looks like he's 11 years old to start off with, whether he's wearing a helmet or not. And just to see him like put his head on, I don't know who that
That was on
was.
Kasurik.
Yeah, on Kasurik's shoulder and just kind of like, there. It'll be okay, Winnie the Pooh. Like, kind of like you're just like, oh gosh, like, ugh, you just feel for a guy like Brock Purdy. All
Yeah,
right, another man. Wait, Glass City, another one, huh? On
he's coming in.
fire.
He's coming in
Uh,
hot.
yeah,
He's
come
he's
literally.
he's unloading the rest of the magazine right now.
So yes, Johnny, your boy Brett doesn't like Gus Bradley. Predictable and stale. What say you?
Um, I don't know. I know the last stop that Gus had, that was one of the issues, was that it felt like he hadn't really moved anything on. It kind of felt like what the Raiders were this year with Pete, was it was just kind of same old, and you do that too long in this league, and everybody's gonna figure out exactly what works against you. Mainly, it isn't even they have to figure out, they just have to go look and watch everything that's worked against you. They will literally have a schlep quality control coach go watch or pull for you every play of 20 plus yards that your defense has given up. And you will watch a full reel of just play after play after play after play, boom, 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 of all the explosives. And you add all those plays into your playbook when this team is on your schedule. And you'll say, okay, we're going to do these. And so then you go play that team and you beat the crap out of them with those plays, because it's proven that system does not handle this well if they haven't changed things and adapted. So um I don't know if it was that Gus needed time away of not running an entire team himself to get some of those creative juices flowing. And he was actually designing all the red zone defense that the 49ers ran. So once the 49ers got into the red zone, their coverage rules actually would change. And so they would have different rules, and Gus Bradley was writing all those, and they were one of the better um red zone defenses, especially when you look at ranked comparatively to their overall defense. I think overall defense, they were like 24th in production given up. But as far as red zone, they were 14th. So they punched above their weight in the red zone. And we saw that especially down the last 6 weeks of the year in a lot of ways. So I look at that and I say, okay, there might be a pathway there for Gus to have the creative juices, reinvigorated, and thinking about how to do this, especially working with Saleh and getting a lot of the input and seeing in of this quarters, match quarters, and um uh and what am I trying to say? Anyways, the system that Saleh runs, like much more of a quarters based system with the match quarters and a lot of the checks that they have inside of it. Um that system in the wide nine. That being said, now he's still under contract. I don't know. I think the Browns want to keep him, but they're also not going to constrain a head coach by saying you have to keep him. And I don't know what head coach would go in there and say, I don't want to work with Jim Schwartz. But I do think if you're the 49ers, you look at what you need to do. I would even offer a third. I would offer a third round pick to the Browns for their defense coordinator. I offer a second round pick. You can trade coach contracts. The Bucks did it for John Gruden. I would
Yeah.
look into what you need to get Jim Schwartz. I think Jim Schwartz would be huge, because outside of Cleveland, I'm not sure Schwartz is going to get another head coaching nod. Now, being in Kyle Shanahan's building may automatically qualify him for a head coaching search. That seems to be the case. There was even rumors about Steve Wilkes getting a head coaching look before the Super Bowl in 2023 until he got fired by Kyle, and that kind of put the kibosh on all that. But that was a rumor going around in the league that there was a couple of teams interested in bringing him in for head coaching interviews. Everybody who works with Kyle Shanahan as a coordinator is gonna get head coaching looks because everybody wants to duplicate what Kyle has done in San Francisco. So, um, so all that, like, you would like Kyle to have his Spagnuolo, who seems like he's never gonna get a head coaching gig ever. But if there's somebody out there that might fit that bill, it'd probably be Jim Schwartz. I think Raheem Morris is out there. I think that you do give Raheem a long look. Raheem has played with a four-man front before. I don't think he's opposed to using it. But I think Schwartz is at the top of your list, and you say, "May the Schwartz be with you," and we try and get him. But I do think if there's anybody out there that gives you the best chance of him being Kyle Spagnuolo, it is Jim Schwartz, and he would be a phenomenal get.
So, Johnny, it is officially the off season. What is something that you're looking forward to? It could be with the channel, it could be towards the draft. We'll get into another super chat here, but what is something that you're looking forward to now that it is officially the off season?
I'm looking forward to actually diving into the college prospects um this off season. I go to the Senior Bowl in a week to watch what's going on there. Um I think that's one thing I'm really looking forward to. And then just watching what the 49ers do in free agency. I think they're going to make some targeted free agent uh looks because this team is it truly isn't. You don't like people are like we need new corners, we need new safeties, we need new linebackers, we need new defensive linemen. No, you need your guys back off IR. Your linebacker room looks pretty good if you get Fred Warner in there. I think you bring Eric Kendricks back to add depth and competition. Your defensive line, you need to have Bosa and Michael Williams. That changes everything. Now you need to find that kind of joker role that they have, that Arden Key, Charles Omenahu role that Yetur Gross-Matos was supposed to play. I don't think they're going to bring Yetur Gross back with the knee issues he's had. He's a free agent, so you need to find somebody who can fill that role. But outside that, you really like what you have in Alfred Collins. You really like what you have in CJ West. I think you let Jordan Elliott go, and you look at, you go after a mid round defensive tackle. I think that's where you're gonna find his replacement. Um, I think you target offensive line, the interior offensive line. You go get Linderbaum. This offensive line looks way different. Now you go get a guy in the draft there. If you can go get Justin Jefferson, you get him in a heartbeat. And this team starts looking vastly different.
So, Dr. Steve, it's been documented on this very program. I'm not sure why it comes up as Rick James Franco because even he admits he doesn't know why, but we know from the avatar that it is Dr. Steve. Um, and he is not too late. He said, "Oh, I'm too late. Don't worry about it." Oh, we will worry about it. Don't you tell us what not to worry about, buddy. We will get to the super chat. Thank you. So Schwartz, then Morris, then Bradley, question mark, who else? And is that the right order of,
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the right order. I don't think they're really going to have much of a list beyond that. There's kind
that's
of
what I was thinking.
been um, projections that maybe KJ Wright, because of what happened to Miko, could be in there. I would be surprised, but we've seen stranger things happen.
What's the
To me,
deal with Jeff
those
Ulbrich? What's
the Falcons won't let him interview, which is
okay.
fascinating to me. This dynamic that you have, the Falcons won't let him interview because they want him to stay there as their DC, but fired their head coach Morris, and they hired Stefanski, who was
Yeah.
fired, but the Browns still have their DC in. Jim Schwartz, and interviewed him for their head coaching
Very,
position. So
very.
both those teams felt like the head coach was the problem, and the Falcons hired the head coach that the Browns felt was the problem. So,
Yeah, makes no sense.
but yeah,
Also, what the
they're not
Dolphins
letting,
did
yeah,
makes
they're
no
they're
sense.
not letting him make a lateral move. Is what the Falcons are doing with Ulbrich.
Yeah, because that was the only. There's as far as like I was going through my Rolodex of names. Some of you don't know what a Rolodex is. I know Dr. Steve does though, and I didn't come up with really that many. I kind of drew a blank the same way that you did. Um,
I
so
think your options after those three guys, that's when you start looking at the college ranks of who has done really
right,
well in defense there that you can
right.
maybe, you know, bring towards you. A guy that is intriguing, but he runs a completely different system. So I don't know. Would be Jonathan Gannon.
Mm,
He had a very people have kind of have poo-pooed on him, much like they did Brandon Staley after the Chargers debacle. Um,
gosh,
but they forget that when he was DC, ran a very, very good defense. But it's a 3-4 system. So I don't know.
yeah. Be interesting to see. The timeline for this, do you think is 2 weeks or are we farther out?
I think it's 2 weeks. I do think the silver lining in everything is that, now that Saleh is officially out the door, that you have a lot because there's still a lot of head coaching vacancies. You still have a lot of quality options out there. Um, I guarantee you, Kyle. Kyle and Raheem Morris are good friends. They were on the staff together there in Washington. Um, they're real close. I would not be surprised if he hasn't been in contact with him, much like he was with Saleh last year. Um, I do think that there really are going to keep an eye there on Jim Schwartz. Kyle Shanahan has had a ton of respect for Jim Schwartz over the years, for what he's able to do as far as defensive coordinator. So it makes a lot of sense. And when you look at what he was able to do with one Miles Garrett this year, you think of what could he do with Nick Bosa, and you really get excited about what Jim could do. Uh, get another, and then how he can mold and use Michael Williams. So
Couple things I want to leave you guys with. So tomorrow, a fresh new episode of Sports Idiot Nation, where you can find Ti of Titans Idiot. He's on that program with me. Johnny has been on that show a couple times. Um, for all college football fans, that is the episode to tune into. We're gonna give college football a send off. My buddy Miles is from not only from Indiana where I live, but he went to IU and he was the video coordinator for the football program. He knows a few of the coaches who have gone up the ranks and just very excited for him. He lost his dad this year and was just very cool to see IU go 16-0. So tomorrow, tune in to Sports Edit Nation. And then regarding, we didn't talk about this yet. And I don't know if we're going to go again this week, Johnny, now that it's the off season. I know sometimes we kind of play it by ear.
yeah, we should be able to. We have a
Friday.
winter storm coming in, so things I may be without power, I may be without electricity.
Okay.
We're supposed to get like
Okay.
an inch of freezing rain in this weekend. So
Oh man.
yeah, we literally get the worst of it. The horrible driving conditions and the power outages without the joy of snow. We get the joy of rain.
Well, we can get into a little bit of the remaining playoffs as far as any other breaking news that come between now and Friday. Football.
He withdrew his name because he thought about it for 2 seconds and then realized that things were getting actually serious and then remembered why. Kyle Shanahan had Mike McDaniel write a 2-page bullet point, letter for why Kyle Shanahan should be let go. Like, most people forget that Kyle had McDaniel write that up.
Yeah, I totally forgot all about. I mean,
Yeah, so if there was anybody who understood how dysfunctional that was, it was Mike, and I think he was doing like the classic, yeah, my agent told me I should do the interview because it looks bad if you just even decline the interview. And then
mhm.
when they were like, "We're seriously considering you," he was like, "Oh, this got
Oh,
more serious than I thought it was. Um, I'm busy that weekend. Sorry." Uh,
all next
y
season. Yeah. My wife has a
yeah.
thing or something. Yeah. That's funny. So yeah, the last thing about who regarding who to root for, and this is what I want to end with.
I
You're
don't
not,
root for anybody this time of year. I just
of
kinda watch what
course,
happens and it goes.
no, of course, especially what I'm talking about is obviously both of our
I'm rooting for the
rivals.
AFC at this point.
100%. But there is a science to it. And this is already it's in the NFL Bible. I didn't make this up. I'm just telling you that you have to remember that the NFC West was the Niners, Rams, Falcons, and Saints, while the Seahawks were in the AFC. Speaking of rooting for the AFC. So the rivalry goes way, way, way back, decades longer with the Rams, as well as the rules also state in Article 4, Section C of the Fandom Bible that if a quarterback who is on your team is the starting quarterback of that team, and said team was the one that knocked you out of the playoffs, it does make it to where if that team advances, you can say, well, at least the team that beat us is in the Super Bowl. So I don't want to hear anyone saying that in this crap sandwich that we have to eat, that they would rather see the Rams. That is absolutely wrong. You cannot be a Niner fan and say that in this crap sandwich you'll take the Rams. It is unequivocally the Seahawks. There is no argument. They have Sam Darnold, who was a 49er, and they beat us, so it makes us look better if we lose
The Rams
to the
have Jimmy
eventual.
G, who is a 49er, and he actually
He's
went
not the
to
starter.
he went to a Super Bowl with
Articles
us.
Article 4 of Section C
Oh,
says the
Adam,
starting.
Adam,
So,
if look, if anybody could follow
sorry,
that weird track that Adam
sorry,
had, I will, like,
sorry.
you need to
No.
come along and
Come
watch
on,
some film with
chat.
me
Tell
because
me,
you can follow some things here.
we have older
I
people in
will
here
quote, if
who
we're gonna
remember the
quote from the
Rams.
NFL Bible, I'm gonna quote from Second Lombardians, which says, "When you are in one conference and it is two divisional opponents who are in that conference championship, that thou musteth root for the other conference in any way."
Yes, and that is, but we know that the way football goes, that one team has to win out of the Seahawks and Rams. And there is no way that you can say out of the two that you would rather see the Rams. You are not faithful to the Bay. You do not remember the old time Niners,
Okay, that
Rams.
was also the Sosar
That's
Rams. Like it's
The
I
Seahawks are way too new, way, way too new of a
Okay, no,
rivalry.
at some point you can't when it's 25 plus years, you can't pull that anymore. Like there's an age limit on that, where it's like, okay, this rivalry predates that. When half the fans of a team were not born yet, when that rival before that rivalry was in place, it starts losing its luster on that. I mean, like, I get it. I still hate the Cowboys as much as anybody. I still hate the Packers as much as anybody because of what
There
happened
you
in the
go,
90s.
and there
But I
you go.
don't hate the Cowboys because of what happened in the 80s. Like, and there's a certain point of where I don't like Bengals fans still aren't mad about the 49ers necessarily of what happened in the 80s. Like, they're just most of the people who are involved in that are gone. So, like, for 49ers fans, our most intense rivalries over the last 15 years, if we just say the most recent times, has been the Rams and then the Seahawks, like before that. And so now it's the Seahawks again. Like, either way, I don't want either one to win. If there's a fan
Right,
base that I think is more obnoxious just because, well, they're just more obnoxious, is our Rams fans. Like because mainly because Seattle fans were really, really obnoxious in the early 2010s and for like 8 years there where they believed that they were just the greatest fan base ever. And then when they weren't good, they all went away again. And then they've come back and they've kind of self-admitted, like, yeah, we're not really that. that bought in when the team isn't good. They admit that now. Like they resolved themselves to that. Like, yeah, it showed our true colors. Oh well. But the Rams fans truly believe like they have the greatest team that has ever been put together in the history of the world. And you go, your team can't even figure out where they're supposed to be located, what state they're supposed to be in. So whatever. I'm just like, both have annoying fan bases for different reasons. I would rather see the Rams have it dashed just because they have truly gone all in on this season. Like, this is an all in year for the
You're
Rams.
saying as a fan of football, like just
No,
watching
as
football.
a 49ers fan, I would rather
Oh,
see the Rams go down because that would be more
oh, go
painful for them.
down. I'm sorry. I
Yeah.
thought you
No,
were
no, no, no,
saying,
no, no.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
if
yeah.
there it be if you look at which team would be more depressed and saddened by this loss, by losses weekend, it's Rams fans, because
Yes,
they don't know if
100%.
they're gonna have another shot for the next 5 years. Because there's no this might be Matthew Stafford's last year. Like, apparently the Rams were willing to trade him for a second round pick last year. Like, that's where they're at.
Yeah.
And they've
Well,
gotta
they
get
weren't
some
sure on
cap space.
health. They weren't sure about his back, to
Right,
be
and
fair.
they're not sure about him next year either.
Right.
So,
No, he's
like
done.
like,
If they
he
win, he's for sure
and
done.
so, you go, this may be their last chance. So, this would kill their aspirations for a while. If the Seahawks lose, they're looking at themselves as still an ascending team, and
Yeah,
they're
they're
gonna say,
new
"We're
and
gonna be right back in it next year." So, like, no matter what, I don't want either one to lose, but I would rather the Rams lose than this one, have their hopes dashed, and then have to use that really high draft pick that they got from the Falcons on a quarterback, than really improving the team, and have the Seahawks then losing the Super Bowl. That's how I wanna
yeah.
see it. They've already lost to the Patriots once, they can do it again.
Yeah, at this point, I'll take the Patriots. I mean, for sure. Um, so one last thing to remember, it's not all doom and gloom. Jerry Rice and Joe Montana lost a playoff game 49-3. So just keep that in mind, faithful. They turned out pretty good and they did lose that a game by more than how we lost. So it sometimes it just sometimes you're the hammer, sometimes you're the nail.
Sometimes you're the grade 2 by 4.
And sometimes you have half your team and you have a practice squad and yeah. So all
Yeah.
right, we will we'll see if any big breaking news happens between now and Friday. Hope there's some good juicy stuff. If not, we're here to hang out with you faithful anyway. So in the meantime, stay safe, stay healthy, and as always, go Niners.